I want to just take a bit of time and talk to you about the decriminalisation of abortion. There's been a story in recent weeks about a 44-year-old mum of three, Carla Foster, who illegally procured highly powerful abortion pills from the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, or BPAS, during the first COVID-19 lockdown. Now, she took those pills at home and baby Lily sadly died. Now, baby Lily was 8 months old, so that is past the legal time limit where you can have an abortion in England, Wales, Scotland. Now, this story has led to a number of members of Parliament and pro-abortion lobby groups come out very strongly calling for the decriminalisation of abortion. And they say things like this, that current abortion law is based on archaic legislation. I think it's really important that we understand what is really going on here, because on the face of it, the calls for the decriminalisation of abortion seem really powerful. After all, would we honestly be comfortable putting our hands up, going out in public and saying, do you know what? We are for the criminalisation of women. On one hand, I want to say to that, well, I am if the law is broken. On the other hand, I recognise that in this present cultural moment, and given how our society thinks about abortion by and large, that's a really, really difficult argument to make, and it's not one that's going to be particularly persuasive. The decriminalisation of abortion advocates, in calling the legislation archaic, just want to unpack exactly what that means. So, the law governing abortion goes back to 1861 and the Offences Against the Persons Act. And in particular, sections 58 and 59 of that legislation make it illegal to deliberately induce a miscarriage, or in other words, to have an abortion. What then happened in 1967, when the Abortion Act was passed, was the Abortion Act sets out legal exemptions to the Offences Against the Persons Act. So the Abortion Act says there are 5 grounds under which a person can legally obtain an abortion, in most cases up to 24 weeks and not beyond. The only exception to that is in cases of what's called serious handicap. And in that instance, it can go up to term, or right the way up to birth. Now, the way that the Abortion Act has been implemented, has been applied, it's very loose. So 98% of abortions happen for social reasons under what's called Ground C of the Abortion Act. And when it comes to abortion right the way up to term for serious handicap, that's been interpreted to include a club foot, a cleft palate, cleft lip, disabilities that are completely treatable. And fascinatingly, when the Abortion Act was passed in 1967, the time limit was set at 28 weeks. It was then reduced to 24 weeks. You might ask, well, why was it reduced? And the reason is because medical science improved in that time, and it became clear that babies born at 24 weeks could survive outside of the womb. Well, medical science has moved on since then, and we now know that babies born at 21 weeks can survive outside the womb. But there isn't the same willingness to debate time limits as there was 10, 20, 30 years ago. So when advocates of the decriminalisation of abortion say they want to repeal section 58, 59, or some version of that, of the Offences Against the Persons Act, the thing that you need to understand, the thing that we need to understand, is that the effect of doing so will be to render the 1967 Abortion Act completely null and void, and essentially to leave preborn babies with absolutely no legal protections in place at all. So right now in this country, a preborn baby after 24 weeks does have some legal protection. As we've just seen, if you procure an abortion post 24 weeks and that baby does not have a serious handicap, then you have broken the law and there are penalties for that. Why does that law exist? Because even pro-abortion people recognise that at some point, an unborn baby deserves some kind of protection, or at least some kind of recognition. At least that was historically the case. But what people are saying today is that actually we want abortion for any reason, at any time, without limits, in other words. The other thing that's really important to understand is that when certain campaigners say that women are being criminalised, that is manifestly false. So in the last 10 years, for example, there have been very few prosecutions under the Offences Against a Persons Act, section 58 and 59, to do with abortion, in comparison to the millions of abortions that have actually taken place. And so the idea that somehow out there are these sinister forces where women are feeling extra pressure because of 1861 legislation, I just don't think that is true. And I think it's right that we call that out. As hard as this argument is, we need to remember that abortion is not simply a healthcare matter, because it involves the taking of a human life. From CARE's perspective, our view is shaped by what God says in His Word. We're unashamed about that. We believe that life begins at conception. We believe that every life is worthy of protection from that point. We believe that life has a God-given dignity from conception right the way through to its natural end. So, as we see the campaign for the decriminalisation of abortion gather pace, I think it's important for us to do three things. The first thing is to be clear about what that will actually mean. The second thing is to be bold and willing enough to ask the right questions and to keep asking them until we start getting better and more satisfactory answers. And the third thing is to be ready to both pray about this, but also to take political action when the time comes. Even if ultimately we don't succeed, sometimes all God calls us to do is to be faithful. So I just wanted to take this time to explain what decriminalisation of abortion really involves because of the misinformation that is out there. You can find out far more about decrim and about abortion and all of that on our website, care.org.uk. Head to our cause section on abortion. But you can also check out a long read that we did, which exposes 6 things the abortion lobby won't tell you about the decriminalisation of abortion. It's a fantastic resource to really unpack what is going on here. And I would really appreciate your ongoing prayers and support as we continue to make a stand for life from conception through to its natural end.